Ah, I love the smell of ponage in the afternoon. It's the Wilk Report. I'm Michael Wilk, coming to you from Cleveland, Ohio. Really laughing my ass off because the troll response to my last couple of videos on the 4-hour long nightmare that was the Snyder version of Justice League was so epically hilarious that I've just been having the time of my life laughing my ass off at the responses because these people are so fucking clueless. It is amazing. It's like, oh, it's a masterpiece, and it's like you're telling people who've had actual education in making films and people who have had years of experience reviewing films that they don't know what they're talking about when they review the movie that you like. I mean, you're as bad as like those hardcore MCU fanatics who, loved Captain Marvel even though it was a horrible movie, but they don't want to admit it's a horrible movie, or those Disney trilogy assholes who love Raylo and all that other stuff. I mean, you're just as bad as them, if not worse. Okay, but numbers don't lie, and the numbers really have an interesting story to tell because if you take a look at CNBC, HBO Max adds 2.7 million domestic subscribers ahead of global launch. HBO Max and HBO added 2.7 million domestic subscribers during the first quarter of 2021. The biggest difference between HBO Max and other players is that it currently only operates its streaming video on demand service in the United States. And Godzilla vs. Kong, which was released on the last day of the quarter, drew the largest audience on HBO Max. So here's the thing. Okay, there's a couple of items that you're going to want to pay attention to because content is king, and viewership measures, or viewership metrics, I should say, are the one way to try and make the correlation as to why people signed up. In the fourth quarter, strong viewership numbers for Wonder Woman 1984 led many to attribute high activation rates to that movie. After all, that at that time, the movie was the most watched piece of content on HBO Max. In the first quarters of 2021, Zack Snyder's version of Justice League was well viewed by HBO Max subscribers, but fell short of the record reached by Wonder Woman 1984. In addition to Justice League, HBO Max had several other high-profile releases during the 3-month period, including Tom and Jerry, Godzilla vs. Kong, which were part of Warner Media's strategy to provide movie theaters with content and pad its streaming service. The same-day release of movies in theaters and on HBO Max has been a success, said Pascal Desroches, Chief Financial Officer at AT&T. It has provided theaters with a steady flow of content in a pandemic-challenged environment, and it's also been a great catalyst for subscriber growth at HBO Max. And here's where you're going to want to sit down, Snyder fanboys, because here's where it gets brutal. The monster movie Godzilla vs. Kong has dominated the box office, setting records for movies released during the pandemic. It also drew the largest audience on HBO Max, the company said. The movie arrived on HBO Max on March 31st, the last day of the quarter. The Snyder Cut, which did not follow this strategy and was an exclusive launch on HBO Max, was expected to help drive subscriber growth, particularly after the company shelled out an estimated $70 million on reshoots and post-productions. Warner Media declined to comment on the movie's financial terms. It's a marathon, but I didn't think a ton of people would sign up for $15 a month to watch a movie, said Michael Pachter, analyst at Wedbush. So as long as they're growing, I think they're on the right path. The better question is about the wisdom of day-date film launches like Godzilla vs. Kong, he added. With only 2.7 million new subscribers, it's hard to justify killing a large portion of theatrical revenues by supporting HBO Max, and the problem is exacerbated as the economy reopens and more people are vaccinated. One more time, the monster movie Godzilla vs. Kong has dominated the box office, setting records for movies released during the pandemic. It also drew the largest audience on HBO Max. But wait, there's more. Because according to Screen Rant, and yes, I do realize this is Screen Rant, Justice League Snyder Cut did not bring in many new HBO Max subscribers. The release of Zack Snyder's Justice League did not significantly boost subscriptions to HBO Max during its release. The near-mythical Snyder Cut became a reality in 2020 when HBO Max announced that the director would be completing the long-rumored version of the film. The 2017 theatrical release of Justice League was considered to be a disaster by many, and even though the DCEU had seen strong entries with both Aquaman and Wonder Woman, the franchise's future seemed to be on shaky ground. How the Snyder Cut was supposed to rectify that remains unclear. As DC Films looks to the future, many fans are still caught up on the idea of saving the Snyderverse, despite that both the director and executives have said the door is closed on that chapter of the franchise. Many hoped the Snyder Cut's popularity would be a boon to HBO Max's subscriber base, proving that investing in the director's vision could be fortuitous for the streamer. That doesn't seem to be the case, though, with CNBC, as I just alluded to, reporting that Zack Snyder's Justice League didn't lead to a massive increase in subscribers at HBO Max. During the first quarter of 2021, HBO Max added only 2.7 million subscribers domestically. This brings the streamer's total subscriber base to an estimated 44.2 million domestic users. HBO Max's current goal is to hit between 120 and 150 million subscribers by 2025. Despite that, the Snyder Cut did not lead to a significant increase in subscribers in March. That doesn't mean the film didn't lead to an increase in subscribers at all. The release of Zack Snyder's Justice League on the platform was announced in 2020, meaning many who expected the release of the film may have already signed up. When the streamer announced the 2021 plan to stream the entire slate on HBO Max the day of release, HBO Max added 4 million subscribers. This slate included Wonder Woman 1984, leading many DCEU fans to likely sign up before the Snyder Cut's premiere. The viability of the Snyderverse is a moot point, with HBO Max building the base thanks to its range of high-profile content that isn't just limited to the DCEU or its theatrical releases. With Warner Bros. Returning to theatrical releases exclusively in 2022, the streamer has the rest of the year to figure out what kind of content it will be making available on the platform to draw in new viewers. While the DCEU is a huge part of that plan, Zack Snyder's Justice League and a potential Snyderverse seems more of a long shot than ever, despite its internal popularity. All I can say is, you've been bitch-slapped, Snyder fans. Bitch-slapped. Because your 4-hour bore fest came behind Wonder Woman 1984, which is not all that great a movie itself, and also contained a rape scene, or hinted rape scene, which has generated a lot of outrage among rape survivors. So your boy Zach couldn't even come to beating Wonder Woman 1984, and Godzilla vs. Kong has dominated not only at the box office, but also on HBO Max. So the Snyder Cut of Justice League, which flushed an additional $70 million down the drain on a movie that people already saw and hated in 2017, myself included, added nothing. It came in behind movies that you were probably convinced, would just be like blown out of the water by this supposedly epic masterpiece, and it couldn't even do that. I swear, you trolls are so easy to troll back. It's amazing. But, speaking of subjects that don't want to die, Twilight of the Dead, George A. Romero's final zombie movie, in the works, exclusive. And this is according to The Hollywood Reporter. Suzanne Romero, wife of the late film director, has quietly been working with screenwriters on the script and is now seeking meetings with directors. In 1968, George A. Romero really unleashed the zombie genre with Night of the Living Dead, a low-budget sensation that remains as relevant today as it was decades ago. The filmmaker went on to direct 5 more zombie features, including Dawn of the Dead, 1978, Day of the Dead, 1985, and Land of the Dead in 2005. What few knew was that before he died of lung cancer at 77 in 2017, Romero was quietly developing Twilight of the Dead, a concluding chapter intended to be his final statement on the genre. Now Suzanne Romero, widow of the filmmaker, is opening up about Twilight of the Dead and sharing her plans to take it to the screen. She's been developing the script with 3 screenwriters for the past few years, and is ready to meet with directors on the project, which has this tantalizing logline. The story is set in a decimated world. Life has all but disappeared, but there still may be hope for humanity. Romero wrote a treatment for Twilight of the Dead with Paolo Zalotti. After the director's death, Zalotti asked Suzanne Romero for permission to continue with the script. He brought on screenwriters Joe Netter and Robert L. Lucas to help. I gave him my full blessing as long as I could be there every step of the way for it to remain true to George's vision, says Suzanne Romero. We had a solid treatment and the beginning of the script. I can 100% say that George would be incredibly happy to see this continue. He wanted this to be his final stamp on the zombie genre. Romero's 2005 film Land of the Dead introduced Big Daddy, an intelligent zombie leader whose fate is left an open question at the end of the film. Romero wanted an answer to what came next. Everything started with my question to him, where do the zombies go at the end of Land of the Dead, says Zalotti. I can't talk right now. Romero directed 2 more zombie films after Land of the Dead, 2007's Diary of the Dead and 2009's Survival of the Dead, but he did not consider those as part of the same overarching story that began with Night of the Living Dead. It's no secret that Diary and Survival were not the way he envisioned the series ending, and George knew it very well, notes Zalotti. Twilight of the Dead was his goodbye to the genre he created and wanted to go out with a powerful film. As the 3 screenwriters worked, they also watched videos of Romero coming up with the treatment. I could see how happy George was, almost giddy, recalls Netter. That made us focus even more on bringing this to life the way he would have wanted. Lucas, a lifelong Romero fan, says developing the final piece of the puzzle in the Dead universe was a dream come true. Suzanne Romero is now ready for meetings to find the right director to complete George A. Romero's zombie saga. This is a film he wanted to make, and while someone else will carry the torch as a director, it is very much a George A. Romero film, says Suzanne Romero. Suzanne Romero also runs the George A. Romero Foundation, which seeks to preserve the filmmaker's legacy and empower indie filmmakers. She's repped by Chris Rowe Management. So, oh dear. Sorry, I've been a little coffee today. Pun intended, because I had some coffee earlier. But yeah, so this is pretty big because, when Romero died in 2017, I figured, the conclusion to his Dead series would, forever be Land of the Dead, really. Just like Robin Brady's The Wicker Tree ended up being the final movie in his The Gods Get Even trilogy. Because he started off with The Wicker Man in 1973, then there was The Wicker Tree, which I think was 2007, and, he's going to follow up with the 3rd film in which the gods get their comeuppance, because in the first 2 films, people get sacrificed to a pagan god, and, end up, kind of suffering at the hands of people whose religion was decimated by Christianity thousands of years ago. So, I was kind of expecting that, once Romero died, that, that was it for his iteration on the zombie genre. But no, it looks like there's one last film that is being worked on. But, I'm kind of fascinated, because, what directors would be best for finishing up Romero's legacy? Because his films were always, very heavy on social and political commentary. And it just, because the first movie, Night of the Living Dead, dealt with, social unrest and race issues, and, the idea that, we sink or swim together, and if we cannot put aside our differences and, try to survive as a cohesive unit, at the end, you might survive, till the morning, but you're not going to have anyone there to back you up when shit hits the fan. And that literally happened to Ben in Night of the Living Dead. He was the last man standing, but he got shot by hunters who mistook him for a zombie. So, and then we had, of course, Dawn of the Dead, which, focused on American consumerism and how people, kind of lost their minds and their souls to, consumerism at the shopping mall. And then, of course, Day of the Dead, dealt with, how we survive, when you have, the military on one side and the scientists on the other, which one is going to survive, the boneheads, shooting the guns, or the people who are actually smart enough to actually try and come up with solutions here. So, there was that. And then, of course, Land of the Dead dealt with, issues of the Iraq War and, stratification of society, even during the zombie apocalypse. Those same dynamics persevere and eventually destroy society, because, society that is based on such inequality, it's bound to disintegrate. So, I was looking forward to seeing a Twilight of the Dead. It had to happen at some point, but, with Romero's passing, I just didn't think it was going to happen. And, I'm glad to admit that I was wrong about that. So I would be very interested to see who gets tapped as director. I know Mr. H reviews. If you check out his video in the top left right-hand corner of the screen, he's floating Guillermo del Toro. I could very much see him directing. I wonder what Todd Phillips, who directed Joker, might have to say about getting the shot to direct this, or maybe, maybe one of the Blumhouse directors, David Gordon Green, who directed the Halloween reboot in 2018 that brought in like over $250 million at the box office on a $15 million budget. I mean, yikes. I mean, that's a pretty big return on investment. Joker made well over $1 billion, like $1.2 billion at the box office on a project that, may or may not have broken the $100 million total budget cost when you factor in marketing and distribution. So, I mean, these are directors who are incredibly successful at bringing in a return on investment, with stories that people actually flock to come see. So, I mean, those are directors I would like to see take a stab at this and get their take on Romero's script, and if they stay faithful to the script, I mean, that's something that, I think would be a proper send-off to his legacy. So, anyway, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I want to hear from you. Oh, and Snyder boys, suck it. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to receive notifications whenever we upload new content. Like this video, share it. If you want to help support the channel, keep the lights on, help us bring you more content, head over to our Patreon or our Ko-fi page. We can't do this without you. Until next time, this is Michael Wilk for The Wilk Report saying take care, good night, I'm out.